focus on these seniors, focus on the season, focus on this game. We'll see what happens.
After the loss to Memphis to end the season, big questions loom surrounding quarterback E.J. Warner and the transfer portal.
This loss marks the third straight season with just 3 wins on the resume. We'll take a look back.
I'm Hayden Bandel, live from Edward Golson Hall. Coming up, I'll tell you what another 3-9 season in 2023 means for the Cherry and White in 2024.
And I'm Sam Covone, live from the studio set. I'll be taking you through the final standings in the American Conference for the 2023 season with a preview of the AAC title game. Inside the Nest is live for the final time this season, and it starts right now. Hello and welcome to our final edition of Inside the Nest for this 2023 season. I'm Meg Doyle and he's Zach Gelb.
Since our last show, Temple has played 2 games, one against UAB, the other against Memphis. Both ended the same way. We start out with the most recent game against the Tigers. Last game of the season for Temple at home for Senior Day. The first offensive snap of the game after the kickoff, Memphis quarterback Seth Hennigan fakes the handoff and throws a bomb to Joe Skates for a 54-yard touchdown. Tigers take a 7-0 lead on the very first play. The Owls on their first drive with a chance to respond. E.J. Warner hands it off to Darvon Hubbard, who finds daylight. Absolutely no one near him. Hubbard runs for a career-long 49 yards for a touchdown. Camden Price misses the extra point. The Tigers keep the offense going, however, getting the ball back. Rock Taylor with the 31-yard reception. A few plays later, an end-around handoff to Sutton Smith diving to the pylon makes it a 14-6 Tigers lead. Second quarter now, Memphis with the ball on the 1-yard line. Brandon Thomas dives in for his 9th touchdown of the year. Tigers extend the lead to 21-6. Later, Seth Hennigan's pass is intercepted by Jacob Hollins. Temple gets it on the 10-yard line, but a pass bounces off Dante Wright and is intercepted by Memphis on the 2-yard line. Blake Watson catches the pass and takes it into the end zone. The Tigers go into the half up 28-6.
The Owls down by 22 points going into that second half. Temple is looking to respond. They do just that with Warner passing short to Ahmad Anderson, who dodges 2 tackles for a Temple touchdown. It doesn't take long for Memphis to get 7 more on the board, with Blake Watson rushing straight through the middle into the end zone. Now in the fourth quarter, Memphis gets a field goal followed by another touchdown to give them a 31-point lead. Temple plays to end with one last touchdown. This time Warner passes deep to Anderson for 75 yards into the end zone. These last-ditch efforts were not enough as the Owls close out their season with a 45-21 loss. Let's break down the stats. Memphis QB Seth Hennigan threw 64% with 18 for 28 and 250 yards, including 4 touchdowns. Blake Watson had 95 rushing yards, surpassing 1,000 yards for the season. Joe Skates had 4 receptions for 78 yards, including a touchdown. On the flip side, Temple outgained Memphis in offensive yards. QB1 E.J. Warner threw 27 for 48 for 330 yards and 2 touchdowns. Darvon Hubbard had an impressive game with 95 rushing yards and a touchdown. Ahmad Anderson Jr. finished the game with 169 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns.
Offensively, we put up a lot of yards, just a lot of non-productive drives, just getting the ball in the end zone. Not as much as we needed to. Obviously, there were some self-inflicted things there offensively. 2 false starts, not a good deal. We throw the 1 interception in the red zone. It's tough to overcome those things. I did some aggressive 4-down calls in the course of that game, just knowing what Memphis could put out there from a production in their offense. And, there's one time I really put my defense in a tough situation where they found a way to hold them to a field goal, which, again, is another example of the resilience.
I mean, the support was tremendous from my teammates, from all the other seniors, the coaches, everybody in the building just supporting the seniors this week, supporting the team this week, as we do all season. So it was just a carryover of what we do every week.
I think so, yeah. I think we've been through a lot this season. Make no excuses, just a lot of stuff that hasn't gone our way. I think as a team, we realize that and we see where we can improve, where we can grow this offseason, and just get back to work is the main thing. We're all just ready to get back into this offseason and just try to turn it around for next year. We'll learn from these things that we've had to go through, and it'll make us stronger on the back end. I mean, just please don't ask for that right now. Just focus on these seniors, focus on this season, focus on this game. We'll see what happens.
Wow, an interesting answer from Warner asked about what he's going to do for next season. Well, he had himself a heck of a year this season. He broke the program record for most passing touchdowns in a season, which was held by P.J. Walker in the 2016 season. He had the second most completions in program history this year, falling just short of his own record he set last season, and attempted the most passes in program history. All laudy numbers for someone who, oh, by the way, missed 2 games due to a concussion.
While we're on the topic of breaking records, let's talk about Darvon Hubbard and Ahmad Anderson. Hubbard rushed for a career-high 96 yards, which is the 3rd most for the season. With 3 touchdowns for the season, he's the only Temple running back with more than 1. Hubbard's huge 49-yard rushing touchdown is the 2nd longest by now. Ahmad Anderson Jr. had a career-high 169 receiving yards, which happens to be the most yards by an Owl for this season. He is also one of 8 receivers in Temple history with 5 100-plus yard games in a season. On top of that, Anderson had his first career multi-touchdown game with 2. He only had 1 touchdown coming into this Memphis game. Now, regardless of the records, Temple's final game capped off their season in a fitting way with a blowout.
Yeah, I mean, you say it all right there, but before we get into the Memphis game, let's talk long-term, specifically E.J. Warner's long-term stay at Temple, if that's going to happen. Do you think he's going to stay here or be gone by next season?
Jake, I think this is tough, and obviously whatever EJ does is best for himself, but I honestly think he's going. A quarterback can only do so much for his team, and this team has to perform well to win too. The offense just was not performing at a level they should have been to be able to help EJ out. I think Temple allowed him to spread his wings, but he needs a different program now to take it a next step further.
Yeah, I'm really up in the air on this one, 50-50. I think the main thing here is if there's a Power 5 school that would want to start him right away. He has a starting job locked up here at Temple. I don't think he's going to want to sit behind someone and be a backup quarterback, so I think it really just depends on who's leaving those other schools and if there's a spot coming in for him. Now, back to the Memphis game, a point I want to start out with is the defense for the Owls. It was not the best day from the Owls at all. They were struggling and were out without multiple leaders. Jordan McGee was gone due to bicep surgery. Tywan Francis and Alex Odom, they both had concussions from the UAB game. Memphis's offense was 9 of 13 on 3rd down. The Owls could not stop them on 3rd down at all. The Tigers also scored on all 6 trips to the red zone. The Tigers were just almost unbeatable by this Temple defense.
Well, the defense didn't do great, and I want to talk about Temple offense because they also really struggled against the Tigers. I mean, they only scored 6 points in that first half. Going into the half down 22 points is hard to come back from. Although records were broken, the Owls were just no match for this Memphis defense, which is honestly saying a lot because Memphis defense is ranked 9th in the conference, and that is not impressive by any means. The Owls went 2 of 8 in 4th down conversions, and I agree with those decisions. When you're down by that much, you really have nothing to lose. You might as well go ahead and try on those 4th downs, but they were unsuccessful.
Yeah, I mean, when you put your defense in bad spots, it's not going to help you out. But, of course, we had a crew at the link for our last game of the season. There was no way we couldn't. Hayden Bandel was there for the game, and he is currently live at Edberg Olsen to talk about the seniors that were playing for their last time in the cherry and white. Hey, Hayden.
Hey, Stan Drayton said, although it is no excuse, the team get as injured throughout the course of this season than the Owls did in 2023. Temple was without key players like wide receiver Ian Stewart and defensive lineman Alan Hay for more than half the season. Quarterback E.J. Warner missed with concussions. These injuries were just one of the finished.
Did not see any progression from year 1 to year 2 under first-time head coach Stan Drayton.
We've been through a lot this season. Make no excuses, just a lot of stuff that hasn't gone our way.
But Drayton says a second straight 3-win season doesn't tell the entire story.
This is I think, a much more resilient football team than it was a year ago. The record's just not telling you, you know what you want to hear.
And the season finale was a good example. A lopsided loss with some positives thrown in for good measure. The Owls actually outgained the Tigers. A big part of that was Ahmad Anderson Jr. playing in his final collegiate game.
All week in practice, we just focused on, executing and doing things as we would in any other week. And it just carried over.
He was potentially playing his last football game, and I think he was highly motivated, after missing, last week's game and, realizing that opportunities aren't guaranteed.
Anderson Jr. did not disappoint, hauling in a career-high 169 receiving yards, his only career multi-touchdown game, and the longest reception of his career for 75 yards.
Anderson Jr. was one of 14 Owls that were honored on Senior Day. The Cherry and White will have to replace 8 players from the offense, 5 on defense, and 1 on special teams.
For my seniors, like I told you last week, they're a hot commodity. Just a bunch of resilient young men, and I can't wait to see what's next for them in their life.
Spending time with all these guys, love this team, just being there with every single day, working this whole season, just getting back ready to go.
Ready to go for Season 3, where the Owls are in need of a season that produces more wins than they earned in 2022 and 2023 under Drayton.
Thank you, Hayden. Although it was not an ideal season for the Owls, we still wanted to highlight a couple of seniors who have made an impact in their football program.
I'm going to start it off. The senior I wanted to spotlight was Yvonne Rigby. Rigby started his career back in 2019 at Temple and obviously stayed at Temple for his entire career. He's been a tackling machine his whole career and got better every single season. Last year, he was second on the team in tackles, and he was named a single digit at the start of this season, proving that he's a leader on and off the field. And then this year, he was third on the team in tackles, and he missed 4 games due to injury. So that just shows how big of an impact he had, even missing those games.
He is definitely going to be someone who has big shoes to fill for Temple, but I'm going with Ahmad Anderson Jr. He started his career at Purdue in 2018. He played 3 seasons there for 17 games and had a total of 362 receiving yards. He then transferred to Temple in 2021, and he did not disappoint. In 2021, he had 283 receiving yards, plus he was named Offensive Player of the Week. Skip forward to 2022, he had 479 receiving yards for the season, plus 4 touchdowns. And then this past season, 2023, he had 647 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns for the season. I mean, that's exactly what you want to see in an athlete. Every season, they're getting better and better. He added just about 200 receiving yards every single season. So he is going to be very missed in this program.
Yeah, I mean, both of them are going to be missed in this program. But while we were on break, the Owls were very busy, not just with the Memphis game, but 1 week before, a road game at UAB.
So let's go back to November 18th to see what went down in Alabama. This was Temple's final road trip coming against one of the new teams in the AAC. Temple starts off strong with Warner passing short to Dante Wright, who takes it all the way for a 71-yard touchdown. Temple holds the lead 7-0 until 4 minutes left in the first half when UAB rushes into the end zone to tie up the game. Temple doesn't waste any time in responding, with Warner passing deep to Martin Robinson for a 47-yard touchdown. And the Owls are up again going into that second half.
Second half now, Demetrius Battle gets the handoff and breaks not 1, but 2, 3, 4 tackles for the touchdown. An Owls field goal makes it 17-17. Fourth quarter, Zeno throws it up to Tajon Palmer, who mosses Ben Osweke for the 22-yard touchdown. UAB up 24-17. Here comes the brotherly shove. Martin Robinson getting in on the score. Then, in desperation, E.J. Warner's pass is just intercepted, and it will end it for the Owls. UAB wins it 34-24. 2 games to sort through and analyze. We're doing a special version of Snapshot this week.
We each have 2 plays to break down, 1 from each game. I'm going to start with the UAB game. We're going to go ahead and play it. This is a phenomenal catch by Dante Wright. We see right here, EJ has the time and space to make that throw. Go ahead and pause it. You see Dante Wright, his timing and precision was perfect to make this catch. He has defenders on either side of him. He leaps up into the air, gets a hold of that ball, and go ahead and play it through. I mean, it was just incredible. They couldn't have worked out any better, to be honest. We're going to watch it back one more time. The Owls ended up pushing their way into a touchdown with this play.
My play here is going to be a handoff to Demetrius Battle that you just saw in the highlights. You can play it, and then you'll see, stop it right there. Yvonne Rigby had the chance for the tackle against Battle, but was unable to do so. Play it again once more, and then stop it right again, because those 3 Owls all come in at the same time and still aren't enough for Battle as he reaches out his arm for the touchdown. You can play it again, and we'll watch it one more time, and you'll just see Battle living up to his last name, battling all the way for the score.
Now we're going to move on to the Memphis game. This was Memphis's final touchdown of the game. We're going to go ahead and play it. It's hard to keep up with, so we're going to watch it through again after this, but Memphis ends up faking the handoff. Pause it right here. You see him right there. We all thought he handed it off to the ball. We did. The cameraman did. The fans did. But nope, go ahead and play it. He ends up passing to Brendan Doyle into the end zone.
And then pause my play last year. I'm going to set the scene. It's 4th and 6 to start the second quarter on Memphis's 36-yard line. The game is 14-6, an 8-point trailing for the Owls. Not too bad. A pass to Zay Baines is there, and you can play it. And E.J. Warner going to drop back, throw it, but it goes right through his hands. This would have given the Owls at least a field goal range. You can play it one more time as we watch Zay Baines. It just goes right through those 2 gloves. It would have set the Owls up for at least a field goal. That being said, that brings us to our first break of the day. On the other side, our last time going no huddle.
Don't you move. Inside the Nest. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Inside the Nest. We've done a lot of standing today, but we're going to do some more.
Woohoo! For the very last time this year, we are going no huddle. Let's get it started.
All right, question 1. Who was your offensive MVP for this season?
For my pick, I'm going with Dante Wright. He was named the College Football Network Mid-Season All-AAC Honorable Mention against UAB. He had a season-high 146 receiving yards, including a 71-yard reception and 1 touchdown. I mean, he's an athlete who progressed throughout this entire season.
My player is going to be E.J. Warner. He missed 2 games and was still setting the records. He threw the ball a program record amount of times and led the country in pass attempts per game. The 2 games the Owls didn't have E.J. Warner, they scored a combined 14 points. It shows just how much they missed them.
All right, on to question 2. Who is your defensive MVP?
I'm going to go with Jordan McGee, who we didn't see in that last game against Memphis. He led the team in tackles for the 2nd year in a row and had 14 tackles for loss, also led the team, and then had 3.5 sacks. He was tied for the lead on that one. So DeJuan Black got to get in there with Jordan McGee, but he was one of the leaders of the defense this year.
I'm going with Tywan Francis, someone else we also didn't see in this last game against Memphis due to injury, but he earned the single digit to start the season, which automatically, you know, you were an athlete on and off the field, a leader for the team. This season, he had career-high 11 tackles versus Rutgers and career-high 9 solo tackles versus UTSA.
All right, last question. What is your record prediction for next year's Owl squad?
This is tough. This was tough to think about, but unfortunately, I just don't have that much hope for them, and I'm going 3-9 again, especially if EJ decides to enter that transfer portal. We just don't have a strong second-string quarterback. Not only that, but the entire team, we're losing a lot of seniors, and the entire rest of the team is young. They're still growing physically.
I'm also going with a 3-9 record because the schedule for next year is even harder. They've got Oklahoma. 3 of their non-conference games are going to be against teams that made bowl games. Lots of talent leaving the program, graduating. I think it's going to be tough for the Owls to improve on next season.
Only time will tell, but it's time for another break. On the other side, our own Hayden Bandel and Sam Covone will join us for some discussion about the future of the football program.
We're looking into our crystal balls after the break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. With the 2023 season officially behind us, now is a good time to compare this season to last. Both seasons mark a 3-9 record and averaging just about the same points per game with 21. Here's where it differs. The Owls allowed just about 7 more points per game this season with about 36. The Owls defense only had 3 interceptions this season compared to last season's 6. Get ready for this one. Last season, Temple had 48 points off turnovers compared to this season's whopping 0.
The program clearly regressed in some ways, a problem so big we needed to bring on beat reporters Hayden Bandel and Sam Covone to talk about the future. Welcome to the desk, guys.
All right, let's get started right away. First question here. 3 straight 3-9 seasons. The Owls were expected to do better this season, and they fell short. What went wrong?
I'll start us off. I think it was the injuries, obviously, that really harped the offensive linemen. Temple had a flurry of different starting rotations within the line, and that halted the run game. The run game was not good at all. Both years of Stan Drayton, who has experience in the run game, basically his entire career before becoming a head coach, he was a running game coordinator and running back coach. And Temple, last year, they were the 3rd worst in terms of yards per game in the run department, and this year they were 11th worst in all of the FBS. That has to improve.
You know, Hayden, you talked about the offense. I'm going to focus on the defense. There was a lack of big plays throughout this season. Only 3 interceptions and 22 sacks throughout this entire season. They're second to last in the conference when it comes to 3rd down defense, which makes sense because they're on the field for an average of 35 minutes, which is only half of the game that they have to exert their energy for. This defense was just not strong in my eyes.
Yeah, I think they lost the season right after that loss to Miami. It kicked off a 5-game losing streak where in all 5 games they gave up at least 40-plus points. I mean, it was not a good defensive showing. There was no run game the whole season, and they were constantly playing behind because of poor defense, both against the run and the pass.
Yeah, you guys pretty much summed up the majority of it. The biggest message being the lack of a run game. I mean, the offensive plays were just so predictable, and that ended up killing them. I mean, the defense ended up playing a lot on the field, and I feel like both offensively and defensively, they were just trying to play catch-up. Offense couldn't put points on the board, and the defense couldn't stop the run or pass game.
All right, enough about the season we just saw. Let's look towards the future. Is the Temple program trending in the right direction or the wrong direction?
So I'm going to say the wrong direction. This started off being an underwhelming season. The game against Akron was way too close. Then they had a blowout at Rutgers. Everyone thought they'd see a more explosive offense and defense, but it wasn't the case the entire season. Now, we can't blame it on the injuries, but we can say that players did not make enough big plays, and coaching and training needs to be adjusted.
I can't say that they're going in the wrong direction with the same record as last year. Would it have been nice to see an improvement? Obviously, yes. But if they continue this direction of going 3-9 in seasons and finishing 6 games below 500 or even just 5 or 4 games, then I will start to say that they're going in the wrong direction. So I'm going to say that they're slightly on the progression in this department.
I wish I could agree with you there, but I'm just saying they're going in the wrong direction. This obviously was not the season anyone was hoping for. I mean, we've been talking about the same themes throughout this entire season. They've not been able to play a 4-quarter football game. There's been a lack of focus, several missed assignments from the defense, and the stats go to show that we saw earlier that Temple honestly did a little worse than last season. Not by much, but in some areas, which is pretty bad to say because they were not a good team last season either. So I'm saying the wrong direction.
Yeah, and I'm going to say right direction, wrong direction. I'm saying they're not going in any direction. I think they're stuck in subpar play year after year. I mean, it's been the third straight 3-9 season. I don't see this being an attractive place for transfers or recruits to want to play here. And also, 9 wins in the past 3 seasons combined. You look at Tulane and SMU, 2 teams also in this conference. They've had more wins this season than Temple's had in the past 3 years combined.
All right, guys, thank you so much for coming on Desk and joining us. We'll be seeing you guys a little bit more later, but now it's time for another break. And when we return, we'll be hearing from a Temple alum. More to come after this break.
Welcome back. Every show you hear our opinions on Temple football, so to end the season, we decided to bring in someone new for their take on how the season went.
Let's bring in Zach Gelb, who is not only a national radio host on CBS Sports. He's not only a Temple alum, but Zach helped start this show. He was one of the 2 original hosts when our show was called The Matt Rule Weekly back in 2014. Hey, Zach, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. Great to be on.
All right, let's get started. This was Coach Stan Drayton's second season leading the Owls. He went 3 for 9 and a second straight season. What are your overall impressions of his leadership for this team?
I got to know Stan Drayton a little bit. He's a good leader, but when you look at the play on the field this year, it was discouraging. You know, I remember when Matt Rule got to Temple to be the head coach, and in year 1, they were a scrappy team, kind of like Stan Drayton's year 1, and the wins weren't there. But that's fine when you're working from the ground up. In year number 2, I wanted to see some progress, and unfortunately, we just didn't see that this year.
And then one of the big questions that has been looming over this program after the emergence of E.J. Warner, if Temple didn't start winning games this year, would he test the portal? How concerned do you think Temple should be right now about that?
EJ's a rock star. He sees the field so well. Another program should come calling, and they should try to get him. Multiple programs, especially in this era of name, image, and likeness. But with all that being said, knowing the Warner family a little bit, hearing EJ talk after the game, they're very loyal. It's one thing to say that you want to stay. We'll see if that happens, but I won't fault him if he elects to leave. Ultimately, I just got to guess here that he does stay for one more year, but then after year number 3, if the talent and the grouping around him and the team around him doesn't get much better and they're holding him back, then I could see him leaving a year from now.
Everyone will definitely be patiently awaiting that decision. But throughout this entire season with the Owls, they've struggled to find consistency. It does feel as though the last few games were better than the first few in the AAC. Do you think this team is moving in the right direction?
Well, it's tough to say right now, but the way that I will say it is it's a make or break year next season, because in year number 3, if you can't significantly improve and be bowl eligible and get to 6 wins, it's going to be very, very tough for me to believe in this program. But with that being said, you got to kind of work it on the catastrophe carry scale, because Rod Carey just absolutely ruined this program and set them back. So instead of maybe taking on a 3-year scale, if they take a nice step next year and still don't get to a bowl game, but they're 5 wins and they lose a tough one to not get to 6, maybe I would be inclined to see year number 4 of this regime.
And then let's take a journey back to 2015. The Owls go 10-4, make the conference championship game, host Notre Dame on College Game Day, and saw 6 players from that team go on to have very successful NFL careers. You were right here on the desk when all that happened. Temple has not sniffed that success since. Can the Owls ever get back to that type of glory, or was that the peak of this football program?
I think that was 1-1. What Matt Rule did at Temple and the talent that he had. Like, I was at the Eagles-Bills game the other night talking to Hassan Reddick, Tyler Medikevich, Deion Dawkins. Those are 3 studs on 2 teams in the NFL. I don't think they could replicate that, especially in this era of the transfer portal and name, image, and likeness. If anyone does have success at Temple, and those teams just had dogs left and right, even if a few stay, you will see a lot more leave because there's going to be more lucrative opportunities. So as much as I'm pulling for my alma mater, as much as I would love to see them get back to that great level. I just don't think it's likely for Temple. Just consistently be bowl eligible, maybe have a year or two where you overachieve and you do something similar, not what they did in 2015, but similar. That would be a win, but we're long from those days, and it wasn't that long ago that Temple was really a rock star program and a stepping stone program, but one that was in the top 25 and making some serious noise.
Zach, we appreciate your time. Remember, the door is always open here. We've got a seat for you.
Thanks so much. Keep up the great work. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Zach. But it's time for our final break of the day. For our last segment of the year, we'll bring Sam and Hayden back on desk to discuss the rest of the American Athletic Conference.
The final part of our last ITN show of the year. You won't want to miss it. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. While Temple season has come to an end, there's some teams still alive in the AAC.
The championship matchup is set. To bring us up to date, we welcome Inside the Nest reporter, Sam Covone.
Thanks, guys. It was an exciting end to the regular season in the AAC, and the title game is heading to the Bayou. SMU and Tulane are going to the AAC championships. Both teams went 8-0 in conference play this season. This game will be played on Tulane's home field due to the Green Wave having the better overall record of 11-1. In just a bit, we will give you our predictions for this matchup. But right now, here are the final AAC standings. Although UTSA and Memphis fell to 8-4 and 9-3 respectively, they will enjoy a December bowl game. The same goes for Rice and South Florida, who are also bowl eligible and have a 6-6 record. Navy has one more chance to secure bowl game eligibility. The midshipmen are 5-6, but they still have that final game versus Army on December 9th. North Texas, FAU, and UAB all go 3-5 this year in conference play. The Mean Green are 5-7 overall. The Owls and Blazers are 4-8 overall. Tulsa and Charlotte trail behind them, going 2-6 in conference play. The Golden Hurricane is 4-8 on the year as the 49ers fall to 3-9 overall. Temple and ECU are in last place this season, only winning one conference game. Temple was able to walk away with 3 total wins this season, but ECU only got the W twice.
Well, Sam and Hayden, welcome on back to the desk. Thanks for being here again. All right, to kick off our final discussion, there were 6 new additions to the AAC this season. UAB, UTSA, Rice, North Texas, FAU, and Charlotte. How do you guys think these teams fit into the AAC?
I'll start us off again. I think what we saw from these teams is what we expected. Obviously, the AAC lost some of its top-tier programs in football. And then when we look at the teams that they got back, it's a lot of middle-of-the-pack teams that came from the CUSA. Those new teams from the CUSA went 13-17 against the older teams from the American Athletic Conference. So I think it shows that they're competing with the old teams from the AAC, and I think it shows that the conference is in good hands.
You know, like Hayden said, we expected losses to come, especially these teams coming into a new atmosphere with new matchups. But UTSA and Rice held their own. I mean, they made it into a bowl game. Now, on the other hand, UAB, North Texas, FAU, and Charlotte all have potential, like you said, Hayden. So second years always seem better for these teams. So we just will have to wait and see, especially since Army is coming into the AAC in the 2024 season.
Yeah, in my opinion, they exceeded the expectations. The 6 teams moving up from a weaker conference to the AAC. I mean, UTSA instantly came in as one of the best teams in the entire conference. Charlotte was the only new team in the bottom 4 of this conference, so I think they came in and did a great job of competing.
I agree with you there, Jake. There was a new level of competitiveness added into the conference when these teams joined. I mean, it presented a ton of challenging matchups throughout the entire season. It was definitely exciting football to watch for the most part. I know they gave Temple a run for their money in several occasions, but I think it was just a good fit for these teams.
Yeah, we talked about the new additions. The 3 teams that left the conference last year were Houston, UCF, and Cincinnati. Do you think this was a stronger conference than last year?
You know, I wouldn't say it was a stronger conference, but as you mentioned, Meg, it did feel more competitive. At least 3 teams were in the race for the top spot at one point in the season. Now, these changes didn't happen every week. We didn't see people going up and going down, but High-scoring games and close matchups were happening frequently, and most games were unpredictable, and it ended up being that way when the clock hit 0 and the final score showed.
Well, guys, thank you for coming on to the desk to talk the AAC one more time. It's been a pleasure talking with you guys, but not so fast, actually, because we have one more game to predict. Temple might be done, but the AAC championship still looms.
That's right. Before we get to that, we're going to go over our own season predictions. We actually have a winner here. Who do we think it is? Oh, gave it away. In first place, Mr. Hayden Bandel with a stellar 11-1 record. You can enjoy these last few minutes of bragging rights. I fell to last place with an 8-4 record. I gave too much faith to the Owls. Jake and Sam were tied for second with 10-2 records. Hayden, congratulations.
Thank you guys.
So let's get into our predictions. You know what? I'm going to lead it off, and I'm going to go with a Tulane win. I'm taking them to win 23-10. I mean, there's not going to be Preston Stone in this game for SMU. That's huge because Preston Stone has arguably been the best quarterback in the entire conference. I think Tulane's going to use that to their advantage with their great defense and take this one 23-10.
You know, Jake, I agree with you. I have Tulane beating SMU 36-21. Not only do they have the better overall record, but they have the home field advantage. They're ranked 17th in all of college football, beating out SMU's 25th ranked. And like you said, the quarterback will be out, so the defense has to be good at getting to the quarterback.
I'll go next. I think this is going to be a closer game than you guys are expecting. SMU is averaging the least amount of points allowed per game in the conference and yards per game through the air. I think their defense is going to keep them in this game, but I still do have Tulane winning.
And I agree with all of you guys. I have Tulane winning 31-20 over SMU. I really think it's going to come down to SMU's second-string quarterback playing. He has not played a full game in quarterback position. With the pressure of a championship game, that's going to be really tough. So I have Tulane taking the win. Although this is our last show for ITN, the Temple sports coverage is not done for the semester. Coming up Thursday at noon, join Natalie Caranda and Patty Heckard for Owl Sports Update. The weekly sports brief will be up next Monday, December 4th at noon.
Well, that does it here for us. After 12 weeks of football, Inside the Nest has come to a close until football starts back up again with the team's unofficial spring season starting in March. The Owls have seniors graduating and leaving, and so do we. This is this anchor's duo last time together as a reporter last year for Inside the Nest and an anchor this year. It has been an honor to talk all things Temple football on Tuesdays for the past 2 years.
It has truly been such an honor and a pleasure to work next to such talented people. And of course, none of this could be possible without our entire crew. A big thank you to everyone from cameras to teleprompter to Jason Alonzo on graphics and Eric Mawhinney, our technical director, along with, of course, our producers, Chloe Giesing and Jacob Smedley. Finally, the biggest thank you to our mentor and executive producer, Matt Fine. For one last time, thank you for tuning in to Inside the Nest.